I got my arms full, but I'm going to do this anyway because, was that ambidextrous? Is that what that's called? Where you can, I think that's when you're, you can do left and right. I don't know what that, I'm just, just spitballing. So I'm looking at these things of, these news stories, talk about Alex Jones, and one caught my eye that says, it was saying something to the effect of, now Alex Jones is trying to make himself the victim after Sandy Hook verdict, This is what I call a shit branch on the shit tree. The shit tree is the lie, the original fabrication in the story. When they put one of these things out, they want you to look away from the tree as quickly as possible. Because if you look at it too long, you'll realize it's fucked up. So what they do is they start putting branches on the tree. Shit branches on the shit tree. And shit branches come in the form of follow-up news stories, interviews with people that were in the event, TV movies about it, just tangential bullshit that has to do with the lie, the shit tree, but not the actual tree itself. Because what it does is now when you're talking about the branches, you are agreeing tree. You know what I mean? You're subconsciously agreeing with them that, yes, the tree is a real thing because now we're talking about the branch of the tree. So if we're talking about the branches, there must be a tree. So that's kind of how they do this. They immediately start filling up the media with different, tangentially related stories, human interest features on victims or whatever, or follow-up things, motion picture starring Mark Wahlberg as the Flight 93 pilot, shit like that. So this thing is a shit branch, but this particular shit tree is like a triple shit tree. It's fucking hilarious because he got sued, right, for saying, I don't even know what he said, by a family that was affected by, I've got to be careful how I talk about this. They're affected by whatever he was lying about. Okay? The family isn't real. Okay? The event isn't real. And his crime, his trial, his verdict, none of that shit's real. Alex Jones is the epitome of controlled opposition. And I knew this a long time ago. I mean, when I first heard of him, I had a vocal teacher that had given me some VHS tapes. So you got to watch this, VHS. So this is what? I mean, it was probably the early part of the century. And one of them was about how he went to Bohemian Grove and snuck in with the camera. And I think at the time when I first talked about this, I said, try to sneak backstage at like a Billy Joel concert. You're not going to do it. And so this guy just snuck in to Bohemian Grove with the camcorder and is just filming, and everyone's like, oh yeah, we know this guy. He's the guy that films here. No. Come on. Use a little bit of discernment in this stuff, So I kind of knew he was a controlled opposition dude anyway. So he's one of their guys, right? He's a, if not a Fed, he's part of some kind of program. And I think I'm safe to call him a Fed. I don't think anybody would get upset. Last time I called Gavin McGinnis a Fed, a few people in the comments got upset. And I get it, right? They've destroyed the family. A lot of young men are being raised by a single mom. They don't have a father figure, and some don't have an older brother figure, and they see guys like Gavin, or maybe Owen Benjamin, or even, well, not Nick Fuentes, maybe they see him like a brother, but they see these guys as a father figure. And when you get emotional about something, and you have emotion tied to something, you take things really personal, and you feel like criticism is an attack on you. And it's not just people. I've been this way about shit too. You know, if someone shit-talked a band I liked or something, I'd take it personal and I'd get all butthurt about it. You know, same thing with different hobbies or movies. I totally get it. It's good to have passion for things. It's good to have emotion for things. But sometimes that passion, that emotion can blind you to reason and logic and just evidence. So, in this case, I don't think anybody sees Alex Jones as any kind of father figure. So what they did, they didn't like that event in particular was the epitome of sloppy job Mossad. I mean, it was awful. Usually when they do these things, they throw out like 10 different possible plot points at the beginning, and they just throw all this stuff out there to cause confusion also, and to see which ones people gravitate toward too. This particular one I watched from the very beginning, and they threw out plot points that they never picked up again, and they never talked about again. The guys in this particular case were guys in the woods with guns, dressed in black. They never brought them up. The main suspect's brother, they were trying to charge him at first, and he was actually on the scene, and there's footage of him getting put into a car. Just all this stuff. They just threw all this stuff out, and they do this all the time. They did a similar thing in Boston with the bombing thing, and I mean 9/11 had a ton of these different plot threads that either get used, picked up, or memory hold. So the whole thing, I mean, it was a work. The whole thing, I watched the whole thing. And it was a complete work. It's funny because I look at these things, right, as they're happening, and I was there at the beginning for that one, for the Vegas one, for a lot of these. And I would download videos and stuff. Like the Vegas one in particular, I had a clip, a video of a girl that posted it saying, you know, this is all fake. The gunshots are on the speakers. No one's hurt. And I downloaded it, and I'm like, someone else must have downloaded this. I get kind of freaked out having that stuff on my computer, so I ended up not keeping it. And I've done this with everything from Pizzagate to all the way down the list. I would save stuff, assuming so someone else is going to save this too, and then never seeing it again. So there was a lot of stuff with this particular situation as well. We're gonna go this way for change, just to get out of a lot of people walking around. So this is this event that Alex Jones was involved with, completely not real, but too many people were talking about it, and there were too many glaring fuck-ups, mistakes. And I think it's a combination of sometimes it's a revelation of the method thing, where they kind of have to show you. So they put some crumbs out there, but it's also a lot of incompetence. As I've said before, when I quoted an Anon that was talking about these events, saying the current people are inheriting a system that they're not really good at using. Combine that with Vailbro Scalebro, and you have a situation where it's much harder to pull this stuff off. You know, and plus with the with the ascent of the internet and people being able to watch this stuff and follow this stuff and cell phone cameras, it's a lot harder to do. So that whole thing was a shit show. So their solution to this was they'll charge one of their guys with fake charges, and then they'll make him go to court before a judge. The whole thing's theater. It's all a farce. And the idea is it will scare other people who don't realize that he's one of them from saying anything. And they can also, at the same time, perhaps it can enable them to make some laws based on the case, which will then keep anyone from talking about or doing anything else. Setting precedent for legally So ultimately, yeah, it's what I said. It's like it's all fake top to bottom. You know, a really bad stage flubbed event. There are no families because none of it's fucking real. I think here's one thing about it. I think originally it was supposed to be a high school, and this is just my theory. I think I saw a few other people kind of bring this up too. The fact that the guy was a teenager, you know, why would he go to this kind of school with this age type of kid? You'd think he'd take it out on his high school. It didn't make sense. It would make more sense if this guy went back to his high school to do this because he was mad at the high school. And that was the idea. And that's why the parents are so old. Okay? All the people playing the parts of the parents who, these same people and, you know, Anons have made memes of some of these people at 3 or 4 of these different events. Like the mother here was the nurse at Parkland, and the secretary at Boston. You know, they're the same people. It's like people like me pay attention to that stuff, but we're very few and far between. And if you try to explain this to someone, they would just think you're a fucking nut. Or it's also Veil Bro, Scale Bro. They're not going to see it. Like they can look at it, right? But they're not going to see it. You know, just how I used to walk by and walk in those impossible architecture buildings, you know, my whole life. I went to school in some of them. And it never dawned on me, like, why would they make windows that are halfway in the ground? Like, it just didn't, I saw it, but I didn't see it. That's the veil. That's scales on the eyes. That's Veil Bro, Scale Bro. Veil Bro, Scale Bro. But, yeah, so this whole thing is just, it's completely farcical from top to bottom. So they fake charged their own guy with a fake crime to make legal precedent so that they can shut other people up in the future. They can scare them from doing it. And if they do talk about it, they can charge them based on this case that they made up that's complete bullshit. It's fucking crazy. You know, this is why it's so hard to explain these things to people. I was talking to another guy in a it was about the Gavin thing. He was like, the reason people can't believe this stuff is they don't understand how many levels of deception are at play here. It's layer on top of layer on top of layer on top of layer. It's very hard to get to the fucking Chewy center because it's like, well, you know, maybe they didn't land on the moon. But when they sent the rover up there, it's like, no, you don't get it. You don't land. The moon isn't something you can land on. Well, I mean, the International Space Station there is no International Space Station. Well, the satellite, no, there aren't satellites, those are weather balloons, those things. We get our satellite from cell towers and weather balloons. Well, I mean, you know, they're never going to try to explain that to someone. It's layer upon layer upon layer. It has to be. And none of it is real or true. Because if any part of it was true, none of it would work. None of it would work. It's like having a shit quilt. You know? If you have one part that isn't made of shit, it's going to stick out. And then you're going to say, hey, wait, this is nice and clean. What's wrong with all this other stuff? So everything, the whole quilt has to be shit. No part of any of this stuff can be real or true. And I remember hearing that famous quote from I forget who it was, the CIA bro, who was saying, we'll know our disinformation campaign is successful when everything Americans believe is false. And I heard that years ago, and I'm like, wow, that's creepy. He must be talking about, like, you know, advertising or or bank lending, or the way government works or something. I never imagined that he was talking about everything. When he said everything, he meant everything. None of it is real. Anything you see on that screen, whether it's television, any kind of media they control, is theater. It's all theater. And that's hard to wrap your head around. And a lot of people won't. Some will see when shown, some will not see Leonardo da Vinci, Donatello, Raffaello, Vilbro, Scalebro. Don't blame the teacher, blame the school.